Hello, this is Palagi. Thank you for tuning into my channel, and today we're going to take a look at the Spyderco Techno. Now, I've heard wonderful things about the Marchin Slysz designed Spyderco Techno, and although I could tell it wasn't exactly the style of knife that I'm normally attracted to, I am a sucker for well-built knives. In this review, I'm going to call it exactly as I see it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. With that said, let's get started into the review of this very unique little knife. As you can see, the design is a titanium frame lock, which seems to be relatively popular in the knife world these days. I think it looks great and adds an element of class, but still affords the user a casual feel for EDC. We have Reeves to thank for this design feature, as he was a pioneer of sorts with the Sebenz's Reeves integral lock. You may notice a few similarities between these two knives, and from this standpoint it may seem like a great value considering what some of those knives go for. For those who are not familiar, the Reeves integral lock, aka the titanium frame lock, is a locking system that is integral into the titanium frame, just as the name implies. It has its strengths and its weaknesses, but it is a simple yet brilliant design. I've heard it referred to as a glorified liner lock. I will say that I personally am a fan of this design, and the titanium on the Techno is a beautiful stone wash. This not only looks great, but it helps camouflage the inevitable wear that develops while carrying and using it. The fit and finish is truly a thing of beauty, which has become a standard for the knives coming out of their Taichung, Taiwan factory. The edges are perfectly chamfered to minimize would-be hot spots and adds to a more ergonomic grip. The blade itself also sports a semi-reflective stonewash finish, which looks beautiful and ties the two parts together very well. The modified drop point is reminiscent of the Rubicon and perhaps the Stretch, except much thicker and shorter. The edge out of box was extremely sharp and actually performed much better than I would have thought for such a thick blade stock. They included jimping similar to that of the Southern, however, it is even wider set and offers moderate traction. The steel is Carpenter's CTS-XHP, which is a powdered metallurgic steel that offers good corrosion resistance and holds an edge pretty well. The nice thing about it is that it is homogeneous, which makes for a consistent quality control and yields good, reliable edges. I am familiar with this steel, as it has been offered on the Domino. It seems to hold an edge very similar to S30V, but also seems to take an incredibly keen edge. I believe this is due to the microstructure of the steel. All in all, I've been very happy with it. Centering is dead nuts on, and it almost has to be to function properly, as the very thick 4.5mm blade leaves very little margin for error. The wire pocket clip also has a titanium look to it. This is the first time I have seen this matte type finish on a wire pocket clip, and I really like it. I'll admit I was hesitant to embrace the wire clips initially, however, once I was able to get a good feel for them, my ambivalence quickly turned to my preference, as they have proven ideal for deep carry and provide great tension, which are two important attributes for those of us who prefer to retain our higher-end knives. The pocket clip is switchable to the other side, however, I'm afraid their efforts are futile, as this particular design is not very accommodating to our left-handed friends. Now, one could possibly use a middle finger flick to deploy the knife, however, the force required to override the detent all but prohibits this. Aside from this, the action is set pretty tight, albeit smooth out of box, and is skating on phosphor bronze washers. Yes, I realize that the pivot screw can normally be adjusted, however, this one felt like it had been red Loctited because it simply would not budge. When I finally got it to release, I was left with a catch-22. I could either have an off-centered blade or mildly freer action. But once I adjusted that front screw, the blade would drift after each opening, loosening the knife more and more. I was not able to get the centering back after this, so I took this opportunity to get in there and clean and re-oil and polish that detent up. When I put it back together, I tweaked each screw until I was able to retain its centering, and I added blue Loctite to the screws so that the blade wouldn't drift out anymore. Even after all of this, the action is still relatively stiff. However, I am now able to deploy the blade one-handed, and it can be flicked open, but it is not super easy. This is a strike against it for my personal taste, as easy one-hand opening is a very important attribute that I specifically seek out in my EDC knives. It seems very rare that I have use of both of my hands when I reach for my knife. Another thing I noticed is that they failed to incorporate a stop on the frame lock. This is not really a big deal, but be mindful not to tweak that flange any further than the width of the blade, as this can create problems with function and lockup. Although subjective, I feel the blue G10 backspacer is an odd choice here. The blue works just fine as it adds the right amount of contrast to break up the monotony. However, I think they could have taken this to the next level by anodizing either a titanium or even aluminum backspacer blue. Or even perhaps adding a carbon fiber backspacer. I think that would have added substantially to an already stylish knife. So, what's the verdict? I think that most of my gripes could be addressed simply by adding a flipper to this knife. With a detent that stiff, the blade would come flying out if it had half a chance. Really quick, let's compare with the Domino. Now, I understand that these are two different knives, but bear with me. They're both titanium frame locks. However, the Domino does have an over travel stop. The deployment on the Domino is very smooth regardless if you want to open it traditionally or with the flipper, which is great for one-hand opening. The blade on the Domino is much thinner with a pointier tip. This makes for a great slicer. Adversely, the Techno has a much thicker and shorter blade that will excel for hard use in a small knife, which is this knife's greatest function for me. I truly think it will be a workhorse that you'll be able to ride hard and put away wet, so to speak. The form factor of the Techno is very attractive for me as it fits very well and snugly in your pocket. It does not get in the way when reaching for other things like the Domino does. The jimping is finer and more positive on the Domino, where the jimping on the Techno is thicker and is not quite as aggressive. I prefer the pocket clip on the Techno to that on the Domino. My point here is if I could have a blend of features from these two knives, it would be an all-star design, and I think it'd be wildly successful. In short, this recommendation will be contingent on if the tougher one-handed opening is a deal breaker for you. As I said, there is no denying that this knife has a very high degree of fit and finish. It is almost the perfect size for EDC, and I think that pound for pound this little guy would stack up with about anything out there for a solid hard-use EDC knife. So if you're undeterred by my sincere review, I think it would be a wonderful choice. If you feel what I said has some merit, maybe set this one out, as there's no shortage of great blades out there. You guys, thank you very much for sticking with me here. Please understand that I have to call things as I see them, otherwise this is all for naught. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for tuning into my channel. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave your mark down in the comment section below. If you're new to the channel here, feel free to click the watermark down below and hit the subscribe button. As always, guys, until next time, this is Palagi, signing off.